Warning! This show contains material that some listeners may find troubling, including discussions of intense horror movie themes, explicit language, movie spoilers, and women speaking. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, horror fans. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Eleanor.
And welcome to Horror Sandbox, the podcast where we dig around in horror films and see what we can unearth.
That's right. Before we get started with today's movie, Charlie, how are you coping with the horrors?
I am coping with the horrors by taking a little beach day to a haunted lake yesterday. It was actually a lot of fun.
Oh, hold on. You told me you went to the beach. You did not tell me you went to a haunted beach. I object.
So I didn't even know it was haunted until I got there. And then the person I went with was like, hey, did you know that this is one of those lakes that has like a submerged flooded city under it? And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, is this the haunted lake? Because there's a couple of them, but there's one in the US that's like super famous for like deaths and stuff. And it wasn't that one, but there was a town that was flooded. They removed most of the town before they flooded it out, but there's rumors that there was still like cemeteries and buried bodies in it and some other stuff, roads and stuff like that. So the boaters that like stay out at night say that they hear church bells chiming in the night. So from under the water. So
okay, I don't feel like I'm very susceptible to that type of thing. That would get me.
Yes, if you like hurt, yes, for sure. Especially anything with dark, creepy water is a no-go for me. But I just want to scuba dive and find artifacts and like the old stuff there. I think that's really cool.
That would be incredible. I would never scuba dive ever. And I would definitely not scuba dive in a lake like that. Nope.
I feel like I would only scuba dive in a haunted lake. You send me in the ocean, absolutely not. There's sharks and other awfulness I do not want to be a part of. But a haunted lake, I would consider it.
I would snorkel in a haunted lake. I would not scuba dive.
But then you can't dig around for the treasure. Anyway. So that was how I coped. I had a wonderful beach day at a haunted lake. How are you coping?
Well, I started the series. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard of it, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm completely obsessed. I'm in love with this book series in a way that I haven't been in love with I don't know if I've ever read a series anything like this, but it's incredible. I guess the best way to describe it is imagine the entire world gets taken over by aliens and they collapse all structures and turn them into an underground dungeon. And every human that survived that initial onslaught can compete with an opportunity to win some prize or fame or whatever and potentially survive for some untold glory or what have you. And our protagonist, his name is Carl, and he survives with his ex-girlfriend's show Persian cat. And they enter the dungeon world. And everything that happens after that is more unbelievable and just incredible and fun and heartbreaking. And I'm only on book 3.
So you have told me about this book previously and I want to dig into it so bad. I was literally at the bookstore with my daughter the other day and I grabbed it and I read the intro, which is what you just described to us. And I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm hooked. But I know the second I start it is like the second I procrastinate this podcast forever and just read that book. So I'm like holding off on it. But I want to start it so bad.
The struggle is real. I recommend the audiobooks strongly. They are incredible. I did also get the hardcovers because there's bonus content in those. It's not on audio, or at least it wasn't when I started this reading journey. But yeah, it's so good. And I found out there are a bunch of people that I work with that have read this or are reading this. So we have like our own little Dungeon Crawler Carl book club.
I love that. There's nothing better than being able to like talk about a book you're actively reading with people around you. Oh, I love it. Well, perfect. Everyone add that to your must-read list and tell us what you think about it.
I assure you, you will fall in love with Princess Donut. And that's all I need to say.
I mean, with a name like that. Okay, Eleanor, what are we digging around in today?
Okay, so we watched the 1982 film Poltergeist, and the IMDb summary is: a family's home becomes a center of paranormal activity that opens a doorway to the other side. With help, they must cross over to get their daughter back. This was directed by Tobe Hooper. The writers are Steven Spielberg, Michael Grace, and Mark Victor, and it's starring Jo Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, and Craig T. Nelson. Charlie, we can't dig around in a horror sandbox without our trusty rusty tools, so what is your Bloody Shovel Award?
My Bloody Shovel Award is the creepiest clown prop, and it had such an impact on my childhood, and I cannot wait to tell you the story. My brother is going to hate me. It's fantastic.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yes, it's so good.
And there are so many creepy clown props to choose from. So the fact that this made it to the top of your list, like, that's got to be some deep-seated trauma.
It is very deep-seated again, that good old childhood trauma. But okay, and what is your Bloody Shovel for this one?
I have to go with a bit of a criticism. I'm going to say this is the worst execution of the my hair got turned white by trauma trope.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, we will. Okay, so we open up on a grainy TV. You can't really see what's being displayed at first, but you can hear the national anthem, and it sounds like a big brass band, and it's on this old TV. Well, I say old, it was current to the era. The scene kind of materializes, and you can see that it's showing like landmarks and monuments from the National Capital Region, so from Washington, D.C. And I was sitting here and I was like, okay, is somebody watching an inauguration? And then several seconds into this, I realized I think this is the thing that used to happen when TV was over.
So I had the exact same reaction as you. I was like, what event is happening? Why is the national anthem playing on the TV? And I did not know that TV was ever over. I thought TV has always been something that just happened and they just played repeats of I Love Lucy or something at night. I don't know. So the first note I wrote about this movie was look up why the national anthem was playing. And it is exactly what happened when the TV was over. But I also thought it was like some crazy event that was being announced at like 2 a.m. But nope, just something that happened every night.
It's funny because I don't remember, like, this wasn't a thing when I was little, but I have seen and heard people talk about it to the point where it's almost a meme. It's like, hey kids, did you know that TV used to just be over at giggity o'clock or whatever? It took me many seconds to realize that, oh, that's what's going on.
Hey, seconds is better than me. It took me like 2 days till I got the chance to Google it.
Till you read my
Right?
notes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it pans out to a man passed out in front of a TV, and there's a dog who snatches up some crumbs that are on a plate. And then the dog runs upstairs and seems to be doing like rounds to check on the family. But I think mostly the dog's motivation is stealing snacks because it takes like a bag of chips from under a kid's pillow. So it does its rounds. It checks on what looks like a mom and 3 kids. The last kid, who appears to be the youngest, is Carol Ann, and she is 5. She opens her eyes and sits up. She goes downstairs to the TV that is just, now static, and she stares at it, and then she starts talking to the TV, and she's saying, hello, what do you look like? And then she starts kind of yelling, talk louder, I can't hear you, I can't hear you. All of this commotion wakes up the family, so they go to see what's going on, and then she puts her hands on the TV, and we see the dad. This is Craig T. Nelson. He is in The Devil's Advocate, for those of you who may be familiar with that movie. Carol Ann appears to be answering voices that we as the audience cannot hear, and she's saying, yes, I don't know, etc. And then that scene is over.
That scene's kind of funny too, because the family's just standing there watching her. Not a single person is like, hey, what are you doing? Like, they just watch her. It's like, wouldn't you like poke her on the shoulder and be like, hey, what's up?
What would you do if you woke up and found your daughter doing this?
I would laugh at her and be like, hey, what the heck are you doing? And if she turned around and was like, nothing, I'd be like, okay, go back to bed. But I certainly wouldn't just stare at her, I don't think.
Do your kids talk in their sleep at all?
Yeah, my oldest has, like, I don't know that she's said anything coherent, but she, like, will wake up and she'll grind her teeth and do, like, weird things in the middle of the night. And she always, like, comes to our room, like we talked about in previous episodes, but nothing crazy. I haven't had that moment where they're like, Mommy, there's a bad man in my closet. But do yours?
Yes, my littlest two definitely talk in their sleep. It's always funny. Like, it hasn't really been unsettling or anything. They've never done anything like gotten up and started talking to unseen spirits or presences or sleepwalked into a trance or something. It's never been like that. It's always entertaining.
I mean, that's for sure. But I certainly wouldn't just stand there and watch her. I would at least take her back to bed.
Yeah, a conversation would be had, I am certain.
Yes.
So in the next scene, we see overhead shots and very happy music. It's a newly developed neighborhood in a suburban California area. There's an absolute maniac of a man on a bike speeding down the street, and he's got a case of beer. And I'm talking like a Costco-sized case of beer. And it's kind of like perched on his side, kind of precariously as he's like wobbling his bike down the road. He passes a bunch of kids who are racing remote control cars. And when he passes them, they send their cars to follow him, and they actually cause him to crash his bike. But he doesn't really seem to care. He has more important things to do. He drops half of his beers. They just go everywhere. But he is completely unfazed, and he barges into a house, and he makes a huge mess because the cans are like, some of the cans are leaking and they're spraying everywhere. And then he joins a gang of men at the TV to yell at a football game, which, I don't know. Does that remind you of your husband at all?
Yes. I was just going to say that. I was going to say this scene may seem overplayed or overdone, but I live with someone who, if we're streaming a football game and it pauses for, God forbid, like 5 seconds, it's the end of the world. And we're screaming at the TV and it's a whole thing. So I related very deeply to the scene.
He's so passionate. I think it's so funny. I love it.
So passionate, yes.
Very passionate. Just as passionate as these men. While they're being passionate at the TV, we cut to upstairs and we see a woman in a kid's room. She's kind of tidying up in there. This is the mother. Her name is Diane. She notices that the pet bird that they have is dead. And she says, which is a little bit relatable, she says, "Couldn't you have waited for a school day, Tweety?" And is this a canary in the coal mine kind of a metaphor that's just being slathered on as thick as peanut butter?
And that's exactly what it was. It is just a canary in the coal mine metaphor for your suburbia is being invaded by the darkness and death. That's it.
And they gotta kill the pet first. Unfortunate. Back at the passionate football yelling, Mr. Rogers suddenly comes on and interrupts the game. And it turns out that the remote from the next door neighbor is actually triggering this television. So it turns into a Mr. Rogers versus TV remote fight. So the two neighbors are like clicking at each other's houses to try to change each other's televisions. And was this also a thing that happened back then?
According to Google, it was. So I did look it up, and I guess most American homes did have televisions back then. And yeah, you could interfere with your neighbor's TV with your own remote, which is hilarious. But I also thought this scene was really funny, like when they're just aggressively clicking their remotes at each other. And when Mr. Rogers comes on the TV and the one guy's like, "Who even is that?" It cracked me up a lot. I thought it was really funny.
So meanwhile, Diane, the mother, she goes to flush the bird down the toilet, but she gets caught by Carol Ann. And honestly, I think she should probably thank her daughter that she stopped her from horribly ruining her plumbing, because I don't think you should flush a bird, because this wasn't like a tiny little parakeet. It's a fairly large bird, like almost a parrot size.
Flushing was definitely a unique choice here. Like, just go bury a quick hole in your yard and throw it in. Why are you flushing a bird?
Yeah, it's not a sailor. You don't have to bury it at sea. Come on.
No.
So outside, one of the kids decides to climb this very weird looking tree, which I think we should talk about how weird this tree is. It looks like it wants to be menacing, but it also kind of looks like it was carved of chocolate. Like, what was your reaction?
Oh my gosh, the carved of chocolate is such a perfect description of this tree. It is the weirdest tree. Like, I don't know, it's the fakest tree I've ever seen. And I did Google it because I was like, what is up with this tree? Why is it so poorly constructed? And I did find a little quote where the boy who played Robbie, he says that whole tree was rubber, but they used like real thorns on it, which, like, why? Why did you put real thorns when you could have just done something soft and fake that looked like thorns but was not? Yeah.
Did they hate Robbie? What the hell?
When I am done talking about this movie with you, you will believe that they hated the entire cast. Some of the things they chose to do on this set are wild.
I'm almost afraid, because
You should be.
it doesn't make any logic. Like, I'm trying to think of it from like a practical effects point of view. Like, oh, you want it to be a little more rigid, but the tree itself is rubber. That doesn't make any sense, because
No.
Okay.
It's already the fakest looking tree in the world. I don't think real thorns versus fake foam thorns would have made much of a difference, but
Yes, I want it to look fake, but I want it to authentically harm you.
yes. Poor Robbie.
Mom and Carol Ann put Tweety in a cigar box. So the boy, Robbie, is still up in the tree and he surveys the neighborhood from his vantage point, and he watches these fast approaching clouds as his mother and Carol Ann bury the bird. We see the teenage sister, Dana, and she is just unimpressed by everything that's happening. In the next scene, Carol Ann now has 2 goldfish, and it is storming outside. Robbie is reading comics in the room that he and Carol Ann share, and he is disturbed by this creepy-ass tree, which is right outside of his window. And given what we now know about the thorns, I think I can understand that. Lightning flashes and makes these really crazy shadows that kind of form like these weird shapes, or even it almost looks like faces in the bark. It's very creepy. Diane tucks the kids into bed, and then there's this absolutely cursed, creepy-ass clown doll from hell in the room. And probably because of the clown, Carol Ann insists that the light stays on in her closet.
It's fair. I don't know what child has a clown like that in their room. It is absolutely wild. That reminds me, I grew up with these porcelain dolls and we kept them in my closet, and they were the creepiest dolls. And you know what? I kept them because I was afraid if I threw them out that they would come back and murder me. So maybe that's why he kept the clown doll. But that thing is the worst. And I can't wait to tell you about the specific scene that haunts my childhood.
Oh, I can't wait for us to do Annabelle with a story like that.
Yes, it's a good one. It's a good one.
So Steve, the dad, is watching dad stereotype war movies in the other room. Diane is reading about sleepwalking, and they are both smoking weed, which, couples with hobbies, cute. The mom says that when she was younger, she sleepwalked 4 blocks, and she fell asleep in the back of someone's car and woke up screaming when she didn't realize where she was. And she scared the crap out of the guy who was driving to work and caused a police response. And then she's like laughing hysterically through this whole description of what happened to her when she was younger. And she talks about her dad making her get, an exam to see if she had been like abused, like hurt physically, and specifically that they were looking for hickeys. She's laughing about this, which it's an incredibly dark thing to talk about. Like, this thing happened to me and I had to get this exam. And I think especially once you get older and realize what your parents thought may have happened to you, that has to be like an incredibly dark thing to reckon with. But also, I completely related to laughing through trauma.
Yes. My personal opinion is if you're not laughing through your trauma, you're doing it wrong. I have been in therapy for quite some time now, and my therapist, I make so many jokes that she gets comfortable enough to make jokes. And then right after she does it and laughs, she apologizes for laughing. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "No, please. Like, if you don't laugh with me, like, what are we even doing here?" And this is what I hire you for.
You have to laugh. You
have to.
I don't know how I would cope with anything if I couldn't laugh through the pain,
Exactly. If you can't make a joke about it, then how are you going to talk about it? So, yes.
Also, everything you tell me about your therapist makes me love her more and more.
She's perfect, and I will tell her to listen to this episode.
Hi, Charlie's therapist. We love you. We talk about you all the time.
We do.
Protect your mental health, folks. If you need therapy, go to therapy. If you don't need therapy, go to therapy.
Everyone needs therapy. You need it. Especially if you think you don't need it. You need it.
See, I just like to listen to you tell me about your therapist. I feel like I get this like rub off effect.
Oh, that's perfect. I'll jot down all the life, quotes she gives me and send them your way.
Yeah. She's not allowed to charge you extra though.
No, I won't let her know.
So Diane talks about being worried that, her sleepwalking kid is going to fall into the pool that they're digging. And Steve tries to reassure her. And then he does like these ridiculous pretend pool dive / poses / moves, and he poses in the mirror. It's a very silly yet endearing scene, and I guess it's just showing that they're kind of like a happy couple who joke around and love each other.
I love the scene, actually. I thought it was so cute. Like, up until this scene, like, Steve, he looks like the dad that like takes naps all the time and is kind of like, he was reading a book while she was talking to him and not paying attention. But then, like, right after she tells him her trauma, he's like doing silly diving it's the cutest. I was like, oh my God, I love you. So I really like this scene.
Yeah, especially because I feel like a lot of older shows will, when they kind of depict family life, they'll depict doofy dad and over it mom or whatever, and they don't do that here, and I appreciate that.
No, this couple is such a team, like throughout the movie. They don't leave each other. They're there for each other. And actually, I talk about that a little bit at the end. I think they do a good job making like a cute couple here. I like it a lot.
It's adorable town over in their room, but meanwhile in their kids' room, it's a hell show. We've got this creepy ass clown, we've got a storm, we've got a spooky tree. It's all terrible. The boy pretends to shoot the clown, and then he decides he'll just hide its face with a jacket, so he like tosses this jacket over it, but the back of the jacket is the face of Chewbacca from Star Wars. So now instead of a clown staring at him, it's Chewie's face just glaring at Robbie during the storm.
This is one of the many times during this movie that I laughed out loud, like literally out loud, because it just falls so perfect. I know they did it on purpose, and it was just so funny. I don't know why it hit me in the funny bone. It was cute.
I was prepared to love the people who made this movie because there are a lot of very funny moments, but I feel like you're going to change my mind about that later. So
I'm going to change your mind. Yep.
Diane and Steve get interrupted from their playfulness by Robbie, their son, who says that the storm is really close. Steve goes to tuck him back into bed, and Robbie says that he's afraid of the tree, but Steve says it's a very old tree, and it's been there since before his company even built the neighborhood, and that's why he chose to build their house next to it for protection. They do the lightning counting thing where you count between the lightning strikes of the light in the sky and then the thunder to see how far away it is. He tucks the kids in, and then he goes over to check on his teenager Dana, who's being a total teen and sneaking time on her phone. This was actually kind of adorable. The little kids do not last in their beds very long, which I find entirely relatable because my two littlest still try to make their way into our bed all the time.
I know, yeah, you have a harder problem with that than I do, but the same happens with us almost every night.
Yeah, it's a real struggle, and they're so cuddly and sweet, which makes it hard on my end too.
It's cute when they don't, like those like couple nights they don't come to the bed. I'm like, oh, where'd they go?
Right? Right.
Yes.
The duality of motherhood. We cut from the kids in their rooms counting, and then we see them later snuggled between their parents after some of the lightning flashes happen. And it's adorable. The TV is on in the bedroom while all of them sleep, and then that anthem that we talked about earlier is playing while you see the shots of various national monuments. And then the static turns on and Carol Ann wakes up. She's drawn to the TV. There's this very cool, trippy effect, like a strobe light playing with the shadows. It looks very creepy. She outstretches an arm, and then this like wobbly kind of snakes of light or smoke or something float out of the TV and then get stuck into the wall. And then suddenly everything is shaking like it's an earthquake. And Carol Ann says her very famous "They're here" line.
Such a good line. Such a classic. Love it. Love it every time.
The next day, we see the pool excavation happening in their yard. Steve is on the phone and he's talking about apparently a 6.5 earthquake that only happened in their house and nobody else felt. The kids are all fighting over their breakfast, and we have once again that family breakfast trope.
Yes. For our listeners who are just joining us, go back and listen to our very first episode, Sinister, where we talk about how we feel about the breakfast trope. But this is a 10 out of 10 breakfast that never happens in a real family home.
The only thing realistic about it is that the kids are fighting over the stupidest things. Like, that's real. That's my family.
Not only that, but they don't really eat like 90% of the breakfast. I don't know if you've noticed that, but she throws most of it away.
Yeah, it's not really food at that point. It's a weapon to use against your sibling.
So true.
Diane asks Carol Ann about the "they're here" thing, and she says that it's the TV people, and she says that as if it's the most obvious thing ever. Robbie's glass shatters and milk goes absolutely everywhere, and everybody starts fighting again. Yeah, this is 100% my family. I will say I couldn't tell from that shot if that was supposed to be creepy, like something happened, or the kids were just being kids and broke something.
I mean, my understanding was that something happened there, because maybe at first you don't know that, but then when he picks up the forks and the spoon and they're twisted, you know that something supernatural happened there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Meanwhile, Carol Ann goes to stare at this little TV that's in the kitchen, and it's just on static. And while she's staring at that, Robbie notices that all of his silverware is bent in incredible angles. There are men outside that are doing the construction in the yard, and they catcall Dano as she's leaving for school or to see her friend. I wasn't sure which one that was. And she very dramatically flips them off, which good for her. But also, on the part of the construction workers, this is incredibly bold. Her parents are paying them, and that's what they do?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, is this something that happened in the 80s? Is this a sign of the times? But yes, immediately fire that crew. They're terrible people, as seen just moments later in the same scene as well.
Diane shoos away the dog who's trying to get the table scraps. And then this is a hilarious moment to me. It's one of the funniest things I think in the entire movie. She sees Carol Ann watching the static and she's like, don't do that. It'll hurt your eyes. And then she flips the TV channel and it flips to a war movie. And there are shots of people getting blown up and shot at. And it's very dramatic. And it's like, don't watch the TV static. That'll hurt your eyes. Here, have some war.
Have some war to hurt your brain instead. No, this is like, was that like the 1980s version of YouTube? Probably.
Oh God, I know. It's Carol Ann, it gets so much worse. Don't worry.
You know what though? I grew up when the internet was just starting and there were no rules. And I remember watching like kittens getting stepped on with like high heels and like people getting beheaded. So like it could be worse, I guess.
Right. Carol Ann, you watch whatever the fuck you want. Okay, so back in the movie, Diane finds her dog freaking out in the bedroom and staring at this like charred mark that's on the wall. And this is where the, quote unquote TV people appeared to enter the house through those like sneaky formations. The dog brings its toy into the room like it wants to play with the ghosts, which is adorable. Meanwhile, one of the construction workers is disrespecting the entire household by sticking his torso through their kitchen window and like sneaking coffee and sampling the food off of the stove and all that stuff. And then he gets caught by Diane. And I'm just like, does this movie hate construction workers? Because they are portrayed as absolute stupid brutes.
I hated this scene so much. First off, why does your window not have a screen? Like, insects existed in 1982 as well. Second off, get out of my kitchen. Punch him in the face. It's not okay.
So anyway, while she tells the construction worker to get out of her kitchen, she notices that all of the chairs in the kitchen have been pulled away from the table at a weird angle, which definitely wasn't how she left it. And then as she's staring at it, she gets startled by Carol Ann, and she puts the chairs back where they were, and then she goes to get something out of the cabinet, so the camera kind of follows her. And then when it follows her back to the kitchen table, the chairs are now not just moved, but they're actually stacked up on top of each other. And then she screams, and then she looks at Carol Ann and she's like, is this the TV people? And she says it is. And then she asks if she can see them, and neither one of them can see the TV people. As they're staring, the kitchen fades to an identical kitchen, and now Steve is showing a couple a home. He brags that the neighborhood is amazing. He says his neighbor has a jacuzzi in his bedroom with an aqueduct that goes into the wading pool outside, which is half inside and half out of their living room. And he's just bragging about the lack of regulation for the construction in the area. And I'm like, you're trying to sell this. It sounds like a literal nightmare. This is like, oh, hello, mosquito swarms and flesh-eating bacteria. Like, oh yeah, we've got no regs here. It's so much fun. You can connect your toilet to your dishwasher. Do whatever you want.
I didn't even catch how absurd that design theory is. Absolutely wild. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Like, you're talking about this window has no screens. Like, this whole house has no regulation. Like, no wonder there was a 6.5 earthquake in your home. It's because it's like
the foundation is crumbling.
Or like, we have no regulation about the foundation. We built it over railroad tracks that were from 1932.
I mean, not much worse than what they actually built it over. So
well, that's true. That's true. Later, Steve comes home and Diane is very excited as she drags him to the kitchen. She has apparently been doing experiments with the chairs, and she has these lines drawn on the floor. And then she asks him to be open-minded, which is also, it's always a great sign. Like, hey, just be really open-minded about this really quick. So she sets the chair in the circle that she has drawn on the ground. And then they watch as it slides to a completely different spot in the floor. And then Diane is thrilled because, her experiment worked. She proved it to Steve. And then she places her kid, so she puts Carol Ann in the same circle and puts a football helmet on her. And then Carol Ann slides to that other circle too.
Okay, so can we pause here and talk about how you would react to haunted chairs in your kitchen? I get maybe experimenting with it, but strapping a helmet and pads to your daughter and putting her so the ghost would slide her across the floor? What a wild choice.
I feel like I would try several other objects and at least one of my cats before I moved on to a child.
A cat, for sure. Both my cats would be sliding across the kitchen floor, but me and my child would certainly not be like number one and number two. And if it worked, I don't know. Like, to be ecstatic about it is a strange reaction as well. Like, why? What are you so excited about?
I took it as I've been doing this all day and now I'm going to show my husband what I found. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to look dumb. That was what I was reading into it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So like someone else is validating this experience that I've been having all day and it's still working.
Which is also kind of cool as far as the movie is, because I feel like most horror movies, when they do this type of thing, it doesn't work the first time. So the partner doesn't believe them.
That's true. No, this movie, I mean, it goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. It is the exact opposite of a slow burn. So it is cool that it works when he gets home too. But yeah, just an interesting choice to just slide your daughter who talks to the TV people across the floor.
If anything, Carol Ann should be like overseeing the experiment.
She should.
So Steve and Diane decide to go over to the neighbor. This is the same neighbor that they got into that remote control fight with. Immediately, they start getting plagued by mosquitoes. This is such a weird scene because they're incredibly awkward. They're like laughing and being like, we're just over here to ask you some questions. And they're like hitting themselves and like, have you ever experienced anything odd? And like, I'm sorry. Are you guys swingers? Are you tweaking? What is happening? This doesn't make any sense.
Wait, okay, so I read about this scene and it's actually hilarious. I guess Steven Spielberg told them like, hey, pretend there's mosquitoes around. And they started like slapping each other and they thought it was so funny that they just kept cracking up and they couldn't stop. Like it was just like a moment of just hilarity and they couldn't control themselves, and that's how it felt.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Because it comes across like they can't believe they're asking their neighbor if their neighbor has ever seen like dishes or furniture fly around.
Yeah, both the actors like acknowledge how out of place and kind of weird this scene is, and they were like, we just simply could not get it together. Like we just couldn't do it. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. You could have cut that whole scene and not hurt the movie though. It's an interesting choice that they left that in.
Yeah, I don't know why they left it in. That they did not speak about.
Obviously, this conversation doesn't go well because the next scene is them in their bathroom. They're like putting cream on their bites. Steve is super embarrassed that it went bad, and Diane says that they had to ask somebody because this type of thing simply isn't in the phone book, which to our younger audience, a phone book was a list of all the people you could call in your region, whether they were a business or a residence.
Do you think they still make them? Like, do you think there's people still getting newspapers and phone books delivered to their steps?
I don't know about that, but I do know that the county I'm in does send out like once a year, or at least they did maybe the first couple years I was here. I don't know if they did the last few. I don't remember. But they send out like a best businesses of blah, blah, blah county or whatever.
Oh, well, that's kind of nice.
It's definitely not my neighbor's phone number.
Right. Yeah, I guess you can't even really Google your neighbor's phone number anymore. So it probably...
I mean, you can. You just need...
Well, you can. It's true. You can.
And I know you can. I know what you can do.
Shut
I know what you can do on the internet. You are scary.
I am scary. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I am basically forensic analysis when it comes to the internet and finding people. But, you know, everyone has their own unique skill set.
That's right. That's right. And I'm here for it. So Steve very wisely says that everyone needs to stay out of the kitchen until he knows what's going on. We cut to Robbie. He is counting, the time between thunderclaps, and he's getting more and more scared. Apparently he was right to do so because that spooky ass tree suddenly grows these horrifying huge arms and reaches into the room and snatches him out of his bed. The bedroom closet then starts glowing this bright white, and then Carol Ann starts screaming for help. So this goes like just to 11 all of a sudden, because one minute Steve and Diane are asking their neighbors if they've seen anything weird, and the next minute their kids are suddenly in danger, and it's very chaotic. Robbie gets sucked into the tree as everyone else tries to help him, and meanwhile Carol Ann's entire room is being sucked into her closet like a tornado. And I should say, There's an awful lot of people getting sucked into things or trying to resist being sucked into things in this movie. No exaggeration, it might be 30% of the runtime of this movie.
You are not wrong. I mean, we got the tree, we got the closet, we got the light, we got there's so many things, the mouth at the end. 30% might be an underestimate.
This is also really funny because as Robbie is being like chomped on by the tree, he takes the time to scream to his dad, "See, I told you the tree is a monster." And I just love that he took the time to be like, "Oh, I told you so."
I relate to that deeply. If my last moments on this earth aren't filled with just spite and validation about being correct, then I just don't want it.
The tombstone just says, "Charlie, whatever year to whatever year. I told you I was right."
I told you I was right. I love it.
While everyone gets distracted with the whole Robbie getting chomped on by a tree thing, Carol Ann gets sucked into the closet, and then the room goes totally quiet. So it was all chaotic, screaming. She's trying to avoid being sucked into the closet, and then all of her possessions and, even the bed, everything's shaking, and then she disappears, and the room goes absolutely still, which I thought was a really effective, creepy execution of that scene. Meanwhile, Steve has managed to save Robbie, and they watch as the tree gets sucked into this tornado, and then everything kind of calms down a little bit outside. They run to find Carol Ann, and she is absolutely nowhere. And then even the kids' beds have been like sucked toward the closet, and they're blocking the closet door. So they are like digging through all this like rubble of the bedroom trying to find her, and they finally get through the closet, and they find this shape hidden under these blankets, and they think it's Carol Ann, but it's the damn clown. And then they think, oh no, she must have fallen into the swimming pool pit. So Steve goes and dives in it looking for her. Meanwhile, Robbie can hear his sister crying from somewhere in the house, and then he starts crying for his mom. I have to say, the actor who plays Robbie does an incredible job. He legit seemed terrified. It was hard not to feel for him in that moment.
There are a couple scenes in this movie that tug at my mom heart, and this is one. When Carol Ann is screaming as she's getting sucked into the closet is another one. The kids do a really good job in this movie, and maybe I'm just a softie because I have kids, but I agree. He did seem super scared here, and I just want to hug them both.
Yeah, he does a great job. They somehow figure out that Carol Ann is stuck inside the TV or somewhere. They can hear her, but she can't see them and they can't see her. And then this is bizarre to me. The very next scene is the dad inside of what looks like a government building. And he's answering questions from three people who at first you might think they're cops or detectives or something. But the door on the room they're in looks like it says Department of Popular Beliefs, Superstitions, and Parapsychology. So I guess they do in fact have that sort of thing in the phone book.
It is certainly an interesting business practice. One I would love to get into, though.
Your days at work probably wouldn't be boring.
Probably not. However, I mean, that one guy does say it took him a whole day or like 7 hours to film a car moving across a floor, so might be a little boring.
The lead investigator, her name is Dr. Lesh, and she asks for assurances that there won't be any publicity. And Steve says that they didn't even go to the police. He just wants help finding their daughter, which, okay, I'm sorry. Why did they not report this to somebody? Maybe the FBI, the fire department, the freaking cable guy, someone.
I think the cable guy in that situation is without a doubt the most appropriate.
It has to be somebody. Like, going straight to paranormal investigators, that's odd. That's a strange choice. I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. Like, does it hurt to call the police? I don't think so. Unless I thought they were going to get arrested, but like, it's a weird story with a lot of witnesses.
It's a guilty behavior is what it is.
That's true. It is.
So back in the home, Dr. Lesh and her two associates, they are Marty and Ryan, they check out the house. Ryan talks about, kind of like you referenced earlier, using a time lapse to record a paranormal instance of a toy car moving a few inches in the span of several hours. And he's kind of bragging about it like, I recorded it with time lapse, it's proof of the paranormal, blah, 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 blah. And Steve is totally unimpressed. And he's kind of just like, yeah, I bet. As they're kind of walking upstairs, and then he's just staring at them, and then he opens the kid's bedroom door, and the investigators are absolutely stunned because they see all the contents of the bedroom just swirling around like they're in a gentle tornado. The mattress is breakdancing in the middle of the floor while the clown is doing something on one of the kids' beds that looks like it would land you on some type of watch list. And then everything is just dancing in front of their faces, kind of menacingly. And then some of them lunge. They don't go through the door, but they lunge at the door towards the investigators and the family. The next scene, they are downstairs and the investigators are visibly shaken as they sit for tea with the family. Diane asks how long they've been investigating haunted houses, and then Dr. Lesh starts to say, well, the determination as to whether or not a house is haunted depends on variables such as blah, 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 blah. But then the teapot in front of her face literally slides across the table. And then she goes, I mean, it might be a poltergeist.
It was hilarious. It was really cute too, because the spirits are like, nope, we're right here. Look at us.
There are power surges happening, and Dr. Lesh explains that poltergeists are usually connected with a person, whereas hauntings are associated with a place. She also says that poltergeists don't last as long as hauntings do. So basically the stakes are set. Whatever's happening here has an expiration date. And I don't know about you, I have never heard this lore. I thought that a poltergeist was just a type of a ghost. I didn't know there was like some sort of a distinction in the lore.
Oh, well, so I definitely knew that there was some type of distinction. Born and raised into a Catholic family, we talked about exorcisms and ghosts and welcoming the spirits into our home often. So I knew to an extent poltergeists were something that they could interact with things in your home or potentially hurt you. So like if you got scratched, it's a poltergeist. Whereas a haunting is something that's tied to like a place and is just like an apparition.
I grew up in like an evangelical home, so everything was just demons.
No, we Catholics, we made sure we called the demons by their correct names, I guess.
Yeah, quite the expanded vocabulary, I suppose.
Yeah, whole demon encyclopedia.
It's because you had to memorize all those saints' names.
Oh my gosh, we did.
So they set up the static TV in the living room. They call for Carol Ann. And as they're doing that, the dog seems to see something. Have you ever seen, like, what do you think about that trope or that idea that pets can see other things, like animals can see entities or whatever?
I believe that animals can see things. If I subscribe to anything, though, it's that kids can see ghosts. And that's something that runs deep in my family. Like, all the kids in my family have at least one, like, I talked to a ghost in my closet experience that I can tell you about later. But I do think it could tie to pets, too. I think they could see stuff that we don't see.
I don't know if ghosts are real, but I want them to be. And if they are, I have one very strong theory about what they are.
Oh, I want to know.
I think they're cats.
You think all ghosts are cats?
I think all ghosts are cats. Think about it, Charlie. They knock things over. They do this crazy howling, yowling sound. They sometimes drop dead animals or squishy things in the night.
Oh, yes.
Dogs don't like them. Come on. This is clearly a cat.
It's such a cat. I could see it.
That's my theory. I don't know if there's anything to ghost stories or whatever. I want them to be real for the whimsy. If they're real, I 100% think they're cats.
I adore that. And I'm just going to, for today, go with your theory that they're cats. Maybe in a different horror movie. I'll tell you my theory.
Okay, good. Back in the movie. Ryan is hooked into machines, like he's, his headset hooked up everything. He's listening for noises, and Carol Ann is answering their calls. They warn Carol Ann not to go toward the light, and she says that there's somebody there, and she sounds a little bit worried. A cloud appears in the room, and it just drops some loot. And then the investigators start to argue about how, like, all the different ways in which this could be a hoax. Meanwhile, Carol is apparently being dragged away by whatever is there, and she is in distress. Diane follows the sound of her voice up the stairs, and then there's this like wind that blows, it looks like it blows through her, and then she turns back around and she says she felt Carol Ann. The family can hear distant banging, and then this really terrifying kind of growling noise, and then the room just kind of gets tossed like by a violent wind, and then everything goes quiet, and they can't hear Carol Ann anymore. Dr. Lesh wants to see the closet where she first disappeared. Marty reappears from wherever he was looking for evidence of a hoax, and he says that something tried to bite him, and then he shows off a really disgusting, like nasty looking bruise. The investigators go to set up their equipment and stake out the house, and then they have this like techno babble jargon chat, the point of which is that if there is a way out of the house, then there must be a way back in as far as Carol Ann. And they talk about something called bilocation, which I had never heard of before this movie.
I hadn't heard of it either. I did look it up, and it's the ability to appear at two places at once.
Where would you appear at once if you could be in two places?
Is it bad that my initial thought was an ice cream shop? I'm such a child.
That is so charming. Because I was thinking about crimes.
Oh, okay. What, like a bank?
I mean, whatever. Like, what crimes could I get away with and also have a solid alibi if I could be at two places at once?
Hell, you commit your crimes and I'll just engorge in an ice cream shop.
Well, so here's the thing. My other location would be with you at the ice cream shop because now I have a witness.
Oh, wait, what if our other locations are each other's homes?
That's adorable. I changed my answer. That's mine.
That's it. Okay, perfect.
Dr. Lesh and Diane have a conversation and then they share some booze from her flask. Dr. Lush's booze comes up quite a bit, so it's like more like Dr. Lush. Am I right?
I mean, she is an ex-lawyer, so...
Oh, the stereotype fits. Yeah.
It does fit.
Dr. Lesh talks about how there's like different types of dying and how some people can turn into ghosts by resisting going to the light. And she says that the poltergeist is probably actually a bunch of lost and angry people who are trapped between being ghosts and heading into the light. And then later that night, everyone is asleep except for Marty and Ryan. Marty decides to go to the kitchen because he's hungry. He grabs like a chicken wing from the fridge and he just like is chawing down on it like a caveman. He wants to cook something as well, so he pulls out this whole like chuck roast or something and then just throws it on the counter raw, which is disgusting. And then it starts creeping along the counter like an inchworm. And then as he's watching, it bursts open and all these like fleshy, raw, gross, meaty bits start popping out of it. He, in horror, drops the chicken bone out of his mouth and then he looks and it's covered in maggots. He goes to go like wash his face off. There's a mirror and he sees something on his face, which he tries to pull off. And then he just starts ripping every single piece of flesh off of his face. I feel that I would simply become a vegetarian after this.
I could absolutely see being a vegetarian after that too. Have you ever seen the movie Black Swan?
Yes.
I wonder if Black Swan pulled inspiration from the scene, because when she's over the sink and she's pulling that hangnail back, even the way that the blood drips into the sink reminded me so much of this scene. It was the first thing I thought of.
That is one of the most disturbing scenes in a movie I've ever seen. And
It's the worst.
I legit have a hard time thinking about it. Even just now, like you saying that, I'm cringing.
Right. But I feel like it has to be from this scene. I will say I think Black Swan does it better because the makeup is better now.
This makeup it's ridiculous. Like, it's very fake looking.
So apparently all it is obviously it's a prosthetic bust because it's not the actor himself, and it's just filled with jello and stage blood, and they only got one take to just rip it apart because they weren't going to make it again, and that's what we're seeing.
It looks like they only got one take because they didn't feel like making it again. But luckily for Marty, he snaps out of it and he's totally fine. There's no maggots, there's no flesh being ripped off. It was just a vision. He's fine, well, at least physically. Meanwhile, Ryan doesn't notice that one of his cameras has started following something as it walks upstairs because he's blasting music in his headphones. Nor does he seem to notice that some of his other equipment is like picking up signals or something. So a door opens upstairs and then this mist starts pouring down the steps. And just then Marty walks back in and he alerts Ryan, and they see this like ghostly jellyfish looking thing at the top of the stairs, and it forms into this humanoid figure thing. And then it kind of solidifies ish into like a gorgeous woman with these balls of light around her. And then suddenly it gets sucked out of the room. So they got it on film, and as they're reviewing the footage, they can actually see more humanoid figures with the one that they could see with their naked eye. And so they're very excited about getting this footage. And then the next morning, the parents send Robbie away in a taxi by himself to his grandma. They let him take the dog with him. And the mom's like, "Call me, okay?" And I'm just like, okay, 80s parents, just sending your kid off alone in a taxi. And also, you need to call me because I'm not going to call you. Like, what the heck?
Times have changed. I won't even get in an Uber by myself. Like, I'd rather walk up to 2 miles before getting in an Uber alone. Like, it's just, and they're just sending their kid. See you later.
The grown-ups, meanwhile, look at the loot drop and they try to figure out, based on the relative age of each of these objects, which they assume belong to those figures, they try to figure out how old each of the ghosts are. And then Dr. Lesh says that Marty will not be coming back, but that she and Ryan will, and they'll bring help. Meanwhile, Steve's boss makes a house call like a psycho and tries to guilt him about not coming to work the last few days. it's apparent here that Steve still hasn't told anybody else that his daughter is missing. So they go for a walk. They're overlooking the development from the top of a hill, and he's offering Steve a spot on the top of the hill to build a better house with an amazing view. And part of this offer is also making him a partner in the company. And then they turn around to reveal that there is this giant cemetery behind them. And Steve kind of jokes that that means there's not much room for a pool. And then his boss says that they're already going to move the cemetery and not to worry because it's not like it's an ancient tribal burial ground or something. And anyway, they have done this before. So back at the house, the investigators bring a new person into the scene, and she is my favorite person ever. They're recording her as she comes in and is kind of like going through the house, and her opening line is so cute. So to set the scene, she's walking into the house, everybody's kind of crowding around her, and the investigators are like filming her come in, and they've got, you know, they're really close and everything. And then she goes, "Y'all mind holding back? You're jamming my frequencies." And it's just a delight. I loved her immediately.
She is so cute. Yes, she's perfect.
This is Tangina, the medium. If you've ever seen clips of this movie, you've probably seen her. She's very short and has kind of like a unique voice. So she wanders around the house, and Steve doesn't seem to like her. While she is exploring, Steve makes fun of Dr. Lesh for being drunk all the time. And then Tangina asks why the door to the bedroom is locked, and Dr. Lesh says she thinks it's the heart of the house. But Tangina says the house has lots of hearts, which, ooh, spooky. Meanwhile, Steve seems to be laughing at his own private joke because he says that he was trying to answer Tangina when she was asking some of her questions, but he was answering her with his mind and she couldn't hear him. So he's like making fun of her and he's being an ass, but I kind of liked it. I thought it was funny.
Have you ever had the fear that like, oh my gosh, what if all my friends can read my mind and I shouldn't think this?
I can read your mind, Charlie. I can hear you right now.
Well, when you talk every day for like 10 plus years, of course you can.
Tangina says that she can, in fact, hear him, and she calls him on it. So it was kind of like a funny moment. She gathers up the family, and she takes Diane's hand, and she tells her that Carol Ann is alive and inside the house. And then she asks about the bilocation. She gathers up the family and then tells them that Carol Ann is in the spirit plane and that all the spirits are attracted to her life force and that she needs to help them cross over and that she can only hear her mother's voice. She also says that there's a terrible rage-filled presence in there with her and that it's strong enough to punch a hole into the house and snatch her up. We cut to shots of them prepping their equipment, and this includes like tennis balls and bath water, and then Diane starts calling to her. Tangina says that something is restraining her, and Steven needs to sound really angry to like scare her into answering. So basically yell at your daughter and be really mean. So he does. He's like, "Answer your mother, dar dar dar." And that apparently works. Carol Ann calls for help, and Diane tells her to run to the light and that she's waiting for her there. They open the door to the room, and then there's this crazy strobe light coming from the closet. Tangina asks for the tennis ball, and then she throws one as Ryan runs down the stairs and looks up at the ceiling where they think the other side of that location is. They throw another one to test it, which is super scientific, and then they toss the rope, and that causes it to appear downstairs. So they're throwing items into the closet, and they're appearing on the bottom floor through the area in the ceiling. Tangina is going to go in toward the light, but Diane says, "I'll go." And then Tangina's like, "Well, you've never done this before." But Diane's like, "Well, neither of you." And then there's this super funny pause. Tangina's like, "Oh, okay, good point. You go." So she like, I just thought it was funny because she immediately lets go and is like, "Okay, fine, you do it."
It's very funny. It's a good moment.
So Diane gets tied to the rope and heads into the closet. Meanwhile, Tangina calls to the lost ghosts and she tells them to go toward the light. Steven is super confused by this and he thinks that she's trying to trick them or something, so he pulls the rope back toward him, and this giant skull monster thing, which looks super cool, kind of like follows him into the room. There's this explosion, and then he lets go, and then on the bottom floor, these jelly-covered bodies just fly out of the ceiling and crash to the floor. Everybody rushes downstairs to scoop them up and throw them in the bath, and then they revive them, and they slowly come back to consciousness, and it's Diane and Carol Ann, and they're alive, and they're okay. And then quite possibly the second best part of this movie. Tangina, who looks like she's been put through the ringer, she kind of like does this like hair toss and straightens her back. And she does this like smirk at the camera that's still rolling. And she says, "This house is clean."
Such an iconic moment. I just love that she leans into it.
But the thing about that is there's still 20 minutes left in the movie, so maybe it's not so clean after all. The very next scene is the moving scene. They are definitely over this house and nobody can blame them. Dana is going to go to her friend's house and her mom says, basically you need to come back at a certain time so we can all get on the road and make sure we're in this hotel at a certain time. Dana also makes fun of Diane because some of her hair has turned white. Diane is going to dye her hair, so I guess she agrees. And you know what? I agree too. And that's why I gave this moment my bloody shovel, because the hair stripes, they're like coming out of her temples. Her hair is like a light brown or a dark blonde. It looks like she just combed the sides of her head with toothpaste.
Now that you say it, it absolutely does look like that. I don't know why it didn't bother me at all. And I think looking at it, it's because I grew up loving Rogue from X-Men, who has a very similar white stripe through her hair. And I always thought it was the coolest. Now, granted, yes, they do a bad job with it in this movie, but I'm like, yes, white hair stripes. Like, I'm here for them.
I feel like if it was just the color, it wouldn't be a problem. But the thing is, it's the color and it's also like, it's on the sides of her head, like coming out of her temples, and it's almost like going straight out, and it looks chunky.
Yes.
As in, it looks like some of the product is still there.
Like they just put white out on a comb and
literally toothpaste, plaster, cake frosting. Steve says that even though this is their moving day, he still has to go back to the office, even though he's quitting, but they're definitely going to leave town tonight, which, like, way to go, man. Leave your family to deal with this. Moving is so much more stressful than Poltergeist. I stand by this, especially since a poltergeist could actually help you move if you think about it.
Just throw all of our stuff out the window. We'll catch it on the way out.
You and I have moved how many times because of the military? We 100% enter a poltergeist phase of just throwing everything toward the end.
Oh, you're right. I do. I'm like, get the trash cans. I haven't touched this thing in 5 years. Let's get rid of it.
Exactly. Later that night, Diane runs a bath in a bathroom that is definitely not packed up, so there's no way these people intended to leave that night. We see the little kids in their room, and that freaking clown is still there.
You rearrange your house after the poltergeist house haunting, and you put the clown back? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, there's no way. Absolutely nobody seems like in a hurry to leave that night.
No, I think like she's literally tucking the kids into bed, so they're going to sleep there. And I'm sorry, no amount of money could make me stay in that house, no matter how clean it was. Like, I'll go dye my hair at the hotel. I'll come back to get my stuff tomorrow.
I'll send other people back to get it. Later, Robbie hears something and he wakes up and we see that the clown is gone and he peeks under his bed, but there's nothing there. And then as he sits back up, we get a jump scare of the clown pouncing on him. It wraps this insanely long arm around its neck and then it drags him under the bed. But Diane doesn't hear the commotion because she's blow drying her hair.
And this is my Bloody Shovel award. I love this scene. It made such a moment in my childhood. So I have a brother who's 3 years younger than me and a cousin who's the same age as me. And I have always been a spooky person and my entire life have been begging my mother to watch horror movies. So she allowed my cousin and I to watch Poltergeist at way too young an age. And my brother wanted to do everything with us. So he was even 3 years younger than that. So we made it through this whole movie and my cousin and I were thinking like, oh, it's a campy movie. Like it's dated even for back in the 90s. But this scene happened and my poor brother, I don't think he slept well for 10 years at least after this scene.
Oh no, poor baby.
It scarred him. I'm sure he spent most nights looking under his bed to make sure there wasn't a clown there. The other movie that scarred him, and this is just a quick tangent, is Gremlins. And it scarred him so bad that he could not open the cupboard doors or like the cabinet doors in our house. I had to open them for him, like for our entire childhood.
Oh.
Sorry, little bro. Love you. know.
Was Poltergeist the first scary movie you saw as a kid?
No, I think my first that my mother knew I saw was the vampire one.
The Lost Boys?
Yeah, Lost Boys, that's it.
Ah.
Yeah, and I don't even remember anything about it. I was so little. But honestly, like the first horror movies in my mind that I remember like making an impact on me as a child besides Poltergeist are Final Destination and The Ring. So I credit those as my first two. What are yours?
We'll definitely do episodes of that. I have a bonkers story about Final Destination, but when we do that episode, I'll get into it. It's going to sound made up, but it's not.
I'm so ready for that.
I don't think I've ever told you this story either, so
No.
yeah.
you
Maybe we'll
haven't.
bump that one up the list. It's a fun one.
Oh, perfect.
I actually do remember the first one that I saw. TV was very restricted in our household. So I actually don't know how I even saw this, but one time when I was little, so like probably 7, maybe 8, I somehow had unrestricted access to the TV and I saw Child's Play when I was little by myself. I remember starting to watch it because I thought it was a kid's movie because it shows you a toy and it says Child's Play. And I was like, well, this is clearly
Oh.
for a little kid.
You poor thing.
Yeah, maybe this is why I am the way that I am, Charlie.
It's perfect. I love it.
I will say, I don't think I've ever actually seen Poltergeist until we did it for this episode.
Really? Oh, it's such a classic too.
And just like Candyman, I feel like this is a movie I thought I had seen when I was much younger, but given the restrictions on TV in my household, I probably didn't actually see it. I think I just was aware of it because, reruns would play and I'd know that it was on, or I would see a trailer, or, this movie is older than I am, so it's been talked about a lot. So I think it's one of those movies that I just always thought I saw, but I didn't actually watch.
Did you love hearing all the like classic lines like the "they're here" and the "go to the light"?
Oh yes, I did.
Oh,
And Tangina, like I'm obsessed with her. She's amazing.
She's perfect. It's true.
Diane, after she's done blow drying her hair, she lays down and she suddenly gets just like thrown around her room. It's kind of insane because it's not clear why. Like maybe the clown spirit wants her distracted while he's trying to kill her kid. I don't know. But it's wild. She literally gets thrown around in her bed and then thrown around in her own like ceiling and dragged across the ceiling. It's pretty crazy. Meanwhile, Robbie is beating the shit out of the clown, and the closet is like full of this ooze, and then there's something just awful trying to come through the door. Diane meanwhile has escaped being thrown against the roof and she can't get into the kids' room, and then she sees a monster similar to what Steve saw earlier, and then something throws her down the stairs, and as she tries to go back up, she keeps getting electrocuted. Like the house is trying to keep her from getting to her kids, which that's really scary. Like that, I can relate to that on like a visceral level. Trying to get to your kids and you can't. That's super scary. And then she tries to run to get help from the neighbors, but she falls into that pool. So it's like a callback to all the time she was afraid that was going to happen to one of her kids. That hole that they've been digging for their pool, which is now full of rainwater, she's sloshing around in it. And suddenly corpses are just popping out of the ground like popcorn, along with coffins. And so she's in this muddy, filthy pool of just muck and bodies. And it's just like a corpse soup.
I just want to say for all of our listeners who are listening and screaming, "They're real corpses," I'm going to talk about it. I promise.
And that is the one thing I knew about this show before coming in. I don't know much. I know if someone said, "Did you know that?" I would be like, yes, I know zero else about it.
Yes, and I will talk about it more.
Her neighbors show up to help, and Diane just launches herself back into her house to get the kids. She goes into the room where the closet is. It's like this open maw and throat. It's really disgusting. And her kids are something's trying to like suck them into that closet, but they are holding on for dear life. They're holding on to like their bed rails. And then she grabs Robbie and she manages to pull them both out. Meanwhile, Steve comes home and his entire house is lit up. He brought his boss with him, which is like super awkward. And now there are corpses and coffins just exploding out of the ground everywhere, and it's like a cursed whack-a-mole. So the family piles into the car and then a body gets launched onto it. Meanwhile, Dana shows up from where she's been hanging out with her friends, and she just gets there, she looks around and she just screams, "What's happening?" Which is so valid. And then they start to drive away, and the boss gets a full like face of ghost blast. And then the house implodes into a single quiet ball of light like it was never there.
Yeah, I looked it up to see if that ghost light was anything, but from what I saw, it's just symbolic to show that the house was imploding. It's just what it released before it sunk in on itself. There was one article I read that said there's an alternate version of the script, and in that, it had the boss being dragged into the house to die. So it could have been an effect left over from that, but I'm not sure.
I mean, if they're not going to cut Steve and Diane slapping themselves silly, literally, they're not going to cut that scene. But also,
That's so true.
you know what it could be now that I'm thinking about it is the ghost just kind of pointing at him like, you're the cause of this.
Oh, yeah, like you did this to us.
Yeah, they're doing a j'accuse. So we cut to the entire family driving away in the rain, and they make it to a hotel, and they look like apocalypse survivors because they kind of are. We watch them all go inside and shut the door, but then a couple seconds later, Steve rips the door back open and he wheels the hotel TV outside and he shuts the door behind him. Cue happy, calm music. End of movie.
Such a good movie. Such a classic.
So, Charlie, we've been sloshing around in the corpse soup of this movie for a minute. What else did you dig up?
So we can't talk about the movie Poltergeist without talking about the alleged Poltergeist curse. So unfortunately, I think this episode's been kind of fun so far. I am going to bring it down to a sad notch for a moment, but I will try to pick it back up. This movie is surrounded by a curse, and it's, well, okay, an alleged curse. And people say it's cursed due to 4 real-life deaths that surround this film. The first is Dominic Dune, who plays the oldest daughter, Dana. Unfortunately, she, shortly after the filming of this movie, was brutally murdered by her ex, John Sweeney. And it's a pretty sad story. I'm not going to get into the details, but that was the first one that happened.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's really sad because just right after this movie, she had a whole world in front of her. But yeah. So the second death is Julian Beck. So he actually isn't in the first Poltergeist movie. He's in the second. So this curse is supposed throughout the entire franchise. He played Reverend Kane in the second movie, and he died during filming due to stomach cancer. However, he was diagnosed with this stomach cancer before he was even cast for the film. So it wasn't that unexpected. This actor just chose to live his life. He was like, I'm going to do as much as I can for as long as I can until it gets me. And that's exactly what he did.
That's so wild. It happened during the filming, though.
During the filming, and people say that's why the ending of the second movie is kind of all over the place, because he's such a big character in the second. Like, he is the cult leader that is the whole reason that the spirits are there. But he died partway through the movie. Pretty crazy. And then there's a third death. It's Will Sampson, and he was also a part of the second Poltergeist movie, and he played a character named Taylor, and he had a chronic degenerative condition that affected his heart and lungs and a couple other organs. And shortly after the movie, he underwent a heart and lung transplant, but he died of kidney failure shortly after the transplant. And then finally, there's Heather O'Rourke. And this is the saddest one because I think she is the cutest. This is a girl who plays Carol Ann. She made it through all 3 movies in the Poltergeist, but in 1987, she was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease, and she complained of having stomach pain often, but the next year she was sick again, and her symptoms were initially believed to be the flu, but she had an intestinal obstruction, and it caused her to die, and it's just really sad, because she's
That's
the
horrible.
cutest.
Yeah.
I know.
Because she was still pretty young, right?
Yeah, she was 12. She was 12 when she passed away. I know. Really sad. So those 4 deaths are the basis of the curse, or the alleged curse that surrounds this movie. But I think 4 actors dying of illnesses that they kind of already had over 5 years isn't that unlikely, and I definitely think it's more of a misunderstanding of correlation versus causation. But there are some wild things that happen on set during these movies that make the curse more believable, and I think give it more why people were so bought into it. And probably the most wild and famous thing about this movie is that they used real bodies in the pool scene.
I know I said that's the one thing I knew. I don't understand how. Just how. Why is also a great question, but how?
I have 2 very quick answers to that. Supposedly, because this movie was in the 80s at the time, just like fake plastic props were not something you could just come across, which is wild to me. So it would have been really expensive for the crew to make skeletons. So what they did was they bought them from a biomedical place that you could buy skeletons from. And so they bought these real skeletons.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to imagine this conversation. Like, well, Dave, we just don't have it in the props budget to get you one of them fancy Hollywood prototypes. What are we going to do about this? Well, I'm going to buy a people.
Yes. Literally, that is what they did. I mean, I don't know how they had that conversation, but I will tell you that that conversation did not make it to the actors, at least not during the time of the filming. So Beth Williams, who is the actress that plays the mother, she had no idea until way after that those were real skeletons. And I read an interview with her where she recalls having to film in the muddy water puddle, and it was over the course of 4 to 5 days that she had to film that. And she said that even without the skeletons, it was horrific because the mud was made of peat and it just smelled like dog shit. And she had to slosh around in it. And she just said it was really gross and she didn't want to scream in the water. Not only that, but she was concerned with the safety because all around the pool was like all the wiring for the lights and these big fans that they use to make wind.
Oh my God.
And she was afraid that they were going to fall in.
That whole time she's worried about Carol Ann. Carol Ann's what she's calling those fans and the wires and stuff. They're going to fall in the pool and kill me.
Yep, she was worried about the real props falling in. So it's crazy. And then, yes, so she was doing all of that with the real skeletons unknown to her. So the whole thing's just crazy. It's funny because that gave the whole crew like a sense of like unease around it when they figured it out. So in the second Poltergeist movie, the man who played Taylor that I mentioned before, he was actually a Native American medicine man. There was a bunch of things happening on set that they thought was just people getting hurt, weird experiences in general. So he did a real life exorcism on the set, and they claim that things got better from that moment on. So that's just super interesting.
That would be interesting because your inclination is to think, well, that sounds like marketing to me. But also, filming is stressful. That stress can cause physiological responses and can make your mind kind of fry a little bit. So all those people who got sick, hurt, or even died, that could have been part of what was going on. No, the filming of the Poltergeist didn't give that person, kidney failure or whatever. But the stress of the filming and recording and practices and all that stuff, I could see where that would make your condition a little bit worse. So if you've got all of that on your mind and you've got this person that you believe is connected with, the universe or nature or spirits or whatever in a more, a more meaningful way than maybe you are, I can see where that might make you feel better.
Yes. Just have someone cast an exorcism, someone who knows what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, why not? Give it a try. It's certainly probably not going to make things worse. So,
and it makes for great marketing.
It does. It really does. So I mentioned that like crazy things were happening on set that made this more real, and there was accidents and people getting injured. And there's 2 things that happened during the first movie that are probably my favorite facts surrounding this film. The boy who played Robbie, he almost died during the scene where the clown pulls him under the bed.
What?
Yes. So according to him, Steven Spielberg actually saved his life. So this is a direct quote from the actor that played Robbie. He says, "So the clown doll had the extended arm and they had me act backwards in a tight confined space under the bed. The contraption caught around my neck. Steven saw that, probably in the video assist, and he pulled me away from it. Who knows what might have happened otherwise. It was very fast. Maybe I wouldn't be here today."
Imagine if the scene where a little boy is getting attacked by a clown actually killed him. Like,
I know.
Everyone is already afraid of clowns, I think, on like a primal level, which for the most part I understand. If that had happened, I think clowns would be illegal at this point. The movie It could never have been made.
No. Yeah, there's a couple reasons why clowns should be illegal at this point. It is pretty crazy and just brings more creepiness to the clown scene. But really it's just 1980s mechanical engineering wasn't that great. And the way they used that clown almost killed a kid. So that's a crazy fact.
Well, I don't know. I feel like the people in this movie would have just put him in the pool with the person who played Diane.
Right. Just throw him in. He's a great prop. Oh my gosh, that's so morbid. But anyway, the other one is the scene, which coincidentally is happening at the same time as a clown scene in the movie. It's when the mom's being dragged onto the ceiling. The way this was accomplished, which is crazy to me, because I was watching it and I was like, I wonder how they did this. They built that room inside of a metal tube, so it was able to rotate on its own like a giant like dryer. It was just a room that was able to rotate 360 degrees, and they just had her go in it and roll around in it. And they said, you're just going to ride this thing and slide along the ceiling. And she was like, okay, I see, like not a big deal. But she says what they didn't say is that they would be doing that take 50 times.
Oh my God.
By the end of it, her knees and elbows were just a bloody mess. And the other thing, the way that they were able to shoot that scene is they strapped some poor cameraman onto the floor and he rotated with it.
Oh my God. That's wild. I want to go back and watch that scene again because I don't know what I thought they did to accomplish that, but that's crazy. I love this.
It is crazy. Yes. And she recalls that several times they had to pause and unstrap that cameraman so he could go throw up and then come back and continue to record. Yeah.
And I say I love this. I don't love how they're treating the actors in this. I think a lot of this is abuse. It's making me think of, have you ever read about like how Alfred Hitchcock treated some of his actors?
On the Bird specifically was the first thing that popped on my mind.
The podcast Behind the Bastards did a pretty good yeah, they did a couple episodes about Alfred Hitchcock and his treatment of his actors, and I don't think I'll ever look at those movies the same way again.
That's a great podcast too, so if anyone hasn't listened to it, you should go listen to it.
But yeah, that's immediately what I thought of, like the way as fun of an experience it was to watch this movie, knowing how they treat their actors. I don't know, it makes everything darker.
It's definitely dark and a little disturbing, and I was reading how they film these and I was like, there is no way this would fly today. But I mean, partially that's just due to there's so much better technology in the world now to use so that you don't have to put people in danger like that. But also, I mean, these actors were definitely abused to an extent and I'm sure did not make enough money for it. Okay, so that's everything about The Curse. Really, it's just a series or sequence of absolutely terrible, wild, funny things that surrounded this film. But do I think it's actually cursed? No. I'm sure there's a lot of drama movies or comedy movies that saw the same kind of things. They just don't have the trope behind it that it's a horror movie.
The lore isn't as fun.
Exactly. As we step out of that, let's take a quick second to talk about what this movie actually is about. And I think at its core, we can just say that this movie is about greed and corruption of the American dream specifically. So if you think about it, the story, it's about a standard suburban family in a brand new house. They clearly have wealth. Like they have a ton of toys just laying around. They have all the electronics. They have enough money to have extravagant breakfasts and can just hire paranormal investigators to come in and eat their nice steaks. It even opens with the Star Spangled Banner playing on the TV. So it's showing the comfort of the American dream and all the luxuries that come with it. So what this movie does is it takes that dream and it turns it on its head and it reveals this unimaginable terror coming into the safeties of what everyone assumes the suburbs is. And that's what makes the story so relatable. What this movie does a really good job of doing is it's taking these traditional things that are representations of comfort and luxury and they're turning them on their head and they're using it to show a critique of consumerism, greed, and just a general hollowness that is the idea behind suburbia and the American dream. So to break it down just a little bit more, if you look at this movie, the first luxury it uses or comfort it uses is a television set itself, which is like the ultimate like epitome of leisure in your household, right? So they use that as the conduit to allow spirits into the home. And then think about the children's room. It's supposed to be the safest, most comfortable place in a home, and instead they turned it into the heart of the paranormal activity in the house. Furthermore, the toys. So the toys can be, there's so many of them. I don't know if you looked at the opening shots in this movie, but their house is just filled with everything Star Wars, all the new and improved like toys, except the clown, the creepy clown.
Yeah, that was vintage horror for sure.
For real. And all that stuff gets sucked into the closet. It gets turned into horror. It's a thing that almost kills a kid at the end. So the kids' room and the toys, it's just a critique of consumerism and overconsumption. Like even the meals that they're eating. They're a family that can have these extravagant breakfasts that nobody eats, or they can have someone come into their home and just randomly cook their steaks and not worry about it. Even the pool, like even today, pools are used as like the ultimate, like, oh, you have a high-end house if you have a below ground pool, not an above ground pool. But that pool turns into a pit of literal horrors at the end. So it's taking all of these tropes of like what everyone strives to have and be and want and turning them into these awful things. And so I think that's what the movie is about, really.
I think it's so funny that specifically the family breakfast trope that we love to hate actually might be purposeful for once.
I think it is. I think it is because, one, they use it to show the family fighting. They use it to show that the family doesn't eat it all. Like, it just shows how this family takes everything for granted in that level. So, yeah, an interesting trope used to be a trope in this movie. And so, yeah, I think that the end is the most important part, which is that the only thing that keeps this family together and gets them through it is that cuteness that we see, the love and the bond that they have for each other. The parents stay in the house because they care about those kids. They both stay together because they don't want to see either one of them get hurt. And there's some real commitment to the family. So the love is the real thing that's getting them through it. So it's really just a critique on that greed, on that consumerism, on suburbia in general, and how that shouldn't be the American dream because there really is no dream there. That's what I think the movie's about.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I feel like you could probably go, I don't know, hours into exploring the metaphor of paving over the graves of your ancestors or the people who struggled before you with like this glossy kind of idea of what the American dream is. Like, I don't know. Smarter people than me have probably already done that.
And speaking of consumerism and graves, guess which company in the US is most famous for building over top of ancient burial sites?
If it's not Disney, I don't have an answer.
You'll know it. It's Walmart. And there's actually like 2 instances that they're most famous for, and they were indigenous burial grounds that they uncovered. One was 154 bodies that they moved, and then the other one actually happened in Hawaii, and this one's pretty atrocious. They dug up the bodies and put them in a trailer and left them in a trailer for 3 years before they were reburied. Walmart. Who would have thunk?
Mentally, listeners, I want to take you back to the beginning of this movie where you saw the staticky, grainy images and you could hear the national anthem playing. But as we close out this episode, I want you to just replace those images of patriotism and the heroes of Iwo Jima and the national monuments and the American flag, and just mentally, as you hear that anthem, I want you to look and see on that grainy static TV, it's Walmart, and it's always been Walmart.
I was so concerned with it.
All these years, I still keep you on your toes, girl.
Every day, every day. Anyway, would we like to discuss what we think this movie actually is?
Yeah. So what do you think? Is it horror? Is it sad? Is it something else?
I feel like it's just horror. I mean, especially if you're looking at it from a 1982 lens, this was like the epitome of horror at the time. So for me, I think it's horror. Maybe a horror meets sitcom, but mostly horror for me. What do you think? I'm curious your thoughts on this one.
I just think it's a comedy. I think this movie is so funny. It has some scary elements. That clown is creepy. The kids being in danger at any point is creepy. the whole idea that your own child could disappear in your home, that's scary. That's sad. Overall, the tone of this movie is a comedy, at least for me. This movie is hilarious.
You know, you're not wrong in saying that the movie is funny. It's probably one of the first horror movies that like intentionally has jokes written throughout it, or like is to an extent self-aware. I will give you that. I just feel like, I don't know if that was what its original intent was. But...
No, I don't think it was the original intent. And I don't know that I would feel that way if I had seen this movie when it came out. Or,
yes.
Well, I couldn't have because I didn't exist. But like, if I had seen it when I was much younger, I don't know that I would feel that way. But watching it now, it's funny. It's very funny. And
I think you can tell simply by the way we discussed it.
Yes. And how long it's taken us to get through this. But also, I guess the other element of this is I think the darkest parts of this happened off camera, or at least behind the scenes. Like everything you told me about how they treated the actors and all that stuff, that to me is a lot darker. And that's the real horror of it. What's actually on film is hilarious.
That's such a good point. Well, I love that. Our first comedy, I think. Well, I said Caveat's a little bit of a comedy, but this is your first comedy, so
yeah.
I love it.
You could say black comedy if you want, but I don't even think it's that dark. Like I don't know. I think it's a comedy. So listeners, if you want to yell at me in the comments of our videos about why this isn't a comedy, please do so. We love that. It's so much fun for everybody involved.
It is. Yes. Debate us. Tell us we're wrong. All right, listeners. I think that brings us to our end. So may the horrors persist.
And when purchasing a home, consider including a paranormal investigation as part of your home inspection package, or maybe just do a background check on the developer. Thanks for listening to Horror Sandbox. For show notes, credits, and contact information, check out our website at www.horrorsandbox.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Horror Sandbox. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with all the horror fans in your life.
What's that sound?